We got a big show for you guys today. I'm not going to take any more of your time. We got Cindy Brunson off the top of the show. Let's get right into it on the AZ Wildcats Podcast, y'all.
Welcome on in, guys, to the AZ Wildcats Podcast. I'm your host, Damon Fairall. That is my main man, Kevin Thomas. And it is a beautiful Thursday afternoon here in Phoenix, Arizona. We're excited to talk to you about all the big news and notes regarding Arizona athletics today. We're going to get into a full defensive preview of the Arizona football team, in succession of our full offensive preview that we gave you yesterday. But as Kevin said in the cold open, we do have a very important interview to get to off the top. So why don't we bring Cindy in here? We got Cindy Brunson, of course, former ESPN studio host, now doing great things, working play-by-play for Arizona women's basketball, as well as Athletes Unlimited and NBC Sports. I think, is that a D-back shirt we got on right now, Cindy, as well? With the trade deadline.
Reps in the household. Yeah,
absolutely. We got the trade deadline going on today. We got a couple D-backs, stuff repping right now, but we're excited to talk to Cindy because Cindy was actually down, I believe, in Tucson. Was it yesterday with the Arizona women's basketball program and, kind of getting to shake some hands and meet some of the new faces around the program. So we're excited to talk to her about what's going on. But Cindy, first off, just how are we doing today on a Thursday?
Really good for being at the tail end of the conventional work week. As you guys know, in sports, there's nothing about Monday through Friday that really impacts us. It's 24/7, 365. David, Kevin, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I am so excited to be preparing for season 2 with Arizona women's basketball as the television play-by-play voice alongside the legend Joan Bonvicini, the winningest head coach in women's basketball history at U of A.
Yeah, we're super excited for Becky Burke in her first year, as the head of this program. I guess that's a great place to start. What were your first impressions going down there and getting to meet Becky Burke?
Energy. And you talk about, in media, we always love when coaches emote, right? We don't want just plain, boring, whatever. First of all, I want to put a pedometer on her. I want to see how many steps she gets in up and down the sideline in a game. She is 10 toes down. And what impressed me most, this is a limited look, right? Because it's summer hours. They don't run for 2 hours at a time. So we only got to see about an hour of practice. But what I did see was all of the players engaged, every single one of them pulling on the same rope, and everybody understanding the early assignment. When Becky took this job, she knew that she was not going to have a prototypical Big 12 roster, but what she is coaching her players to do is give 1,000% effort and energy, to never be outworked. And if the Wildcats win the inch-by-inch battle every night on 94 feet, they're going to shock some people in the Big 12. And I can't wait to see it unfold.
Well, you mentioned Becky Burke's energy there, and we'll get to the on-the-court stuff throughout the course of this interview, but I want to pinpoint that energy piece that you alluded to, because she had a meet and greet around 5 p.m., right, as people are getting off of work, maybe still at work. You alluded to weird hours that people work. Me and Damon, we were maybe a little skeptical that it would be a full house, considering the time of day on a Monday that people were being asked to show up. But people were there in droves. Now, we don't need to talk about the age of the people that were there in droves, but the people were there in droves. The people that wanted to support this program were there. Can you talk about the early connection that Becky Burke has made with the fan base? Because I know that was one of the big questions I had when Adia Barnes was let go to SMU, is how quickly could the next coach, it ended up being Becky Burke, connect with this fan base?
Absolutely. I think a big connective piece was the hiring of Julie Hargrove, right? Familiar to Arizona Wildcat Nation, familiar to Valley basketball here in the Phoenix area with her time with Mercury, the season ticket holders up here that drive down to Tucson on the regular. So that was a nice piece. And the fact that Becky is just what you want in a coach. She's saying the right thing. She's bringing the energy. She's bringing the fight and tenacity and wants to earn the respect of the season ticket holders. And one of the big things that I learned yesterday was, yes, a lot of Wildcat Nation was in their feelings, understandably, when Adia Barnes left Tucson. They turned in their season tickets. They're like, we're done. I'm out. Figure it out. A lot of those people, I was told north of 90% who gave away their season tickets, let go of them, have circled back to renew. They're believing in what Becky Burke is doing.
Why do you think that is?
I think it is because she's not overselling the expectations, right? She knows this is a build. She is smart enough to know it's not going to go back to what the Nia Butts era was like, right? And she can speak true to that because her general manager of the program is Michelle Marciniak, Tennessee legend. Hello, won Pat Summitt's 4th title and has really got the program going in the right direction as far as NIL money, as far as helping on the recruiting trail, being a voice that Becky can use as a sounding board, but as well as, hey, what do you think of this? Because this is, a big job for Becky moving from Buffalo to Arizona. She understands the expectations as well as Michelle's been there, done that, right? So I think the combination of all of that coming together has really impressed the fan base that they know that this season will, maybe a step back, but the effort and energy will be there. And then the proof will be in the pudding in the recruiting class. Now, there's talk of a 6'4", stretch 4 that is being courted. I can't say any more than that. That could help this season. And already, because of the NIL dollars in place, the recruiting class for next year already looks stout.
Let's talk about that recruiting piece because Becky Burke, we've talked about her as being a program builder on this show. You know what I mean? And I think that is a huge reason when I spoke to DRF about Becky Burke as to why she brought her in to run this program, right? Can you speak to your interpretation of what kind of recruiter Becky Burke is? I've heard words like relentless, thrown out there to describe her recruiting. The classes, as you've alluded to, already seem to be being put together. What's your interpretation of her strength as a recruiter?
Dogged determination. She's not going to get outworked. She expects that from her players because she lives it herself. And I think that is her absolute strength. I was so impressed, just from the eye contact, the handshake, just the little things that you expect from a big time Division I coach in the Big 12, a Power 4 conference. She brings it. And I was really impressed with the players that she brought with her from Buffalo, folks that were coming out of high school that signed to play with her there and followed her to Tucson because of the sell in the living room. She's a closer.
You talked about it a little bit, and you mentioned, you're going to see full effort from a Becky Burke team, that there might be a little bit of a slight step back, though, in terms of maybe the overall record, in year one. But what are your expectations fully for Becky Burke in year one?
I think it's all going to depend on the players that she has on the floor getting over the shock of the size and speed of the Big 12. If they can handle that relatively quickly, they are going to be in games. I was so impressed in the first practice that I was able to see the concentration on defense. She has players on the roster who dropped 50 pieces in high school. The offense is not going to be a problem. It's the defense, stopping what the other team is going to bring to the table. And the fact that they are so young for the most part, but buying into the defensive piece early, so impressive. there was the body language piece for me is so huge. You guys know I have watched all kinds of women's basketball across the board, WNBA, pros at Athletes Unlimited, all kinds of college in the Big 10, Big 12, ACC, A10. I just called the A10 tournament this past spring. For me, it's about body language. And there were no energy vampires on the floor yesterday. Everybody had a big smile. The effort and energy was there. And I think that is really going to carry this Wildcat roster a long way. Also, it's death by 1,000 cuts. There's really only a couple of people where you go, oh yeah, she's a bucket. She's going to score. That IQ, it jumps off the table. But also, they share the basketball. And so it could be a death by 1,000 cuts, right? On any given night, somebody could go on a heater, and Becky's not going to take them off the floor because she likes to score the basketball as well as play defense. So I think it's going to be a great combination.
Who do you think those bucket getters are for this current roster?
Well, I tell you, I don't want to put any pressure on anybody because I only saw them for 60 minutes. So I'm going to hold back. I want to let them develop, and I have me back in August. Joan and I are going to pull up again. Let them get a few more practices under their belts. And I'm curious to see if what I liked initially yesterday maintains and holds.
You might not want to put any pressure on anybody, but, and like I've said, or like you said, you haven't seen these players for more than just an hour at a time. But is there a player that when they were brought into Arizona after Becky Burke was signed, and maybe when you saw them in person, it kind of reinforced your feeling that you feel like, oh, this is a real player that they got, and it could surprise people in the Big 12? Because I feel like a lot of more casual Arizona women's basketball fans feel like, okay, you get Becky Burke from a Buffalo, she brings some players from a lower level of play. That doesn't maybe move the needle for some people, but they are real hoopers, right? And there is real talent on that roster. So is there anybody that you think, as soon as you saw Becky Burke secure that signing, you're like, okay, Becky Burke is cooking with gas?
No, honestly. Because of the change of conferences and expectations. And I want to see a couple of the players that caught my eye yesterday. I want to see them in the weight room. I want to see them put on a little weight and get in the nutrition program. And yeah, again, these young women are at such a fragile point right now. I just don't want to heap that pressure on them. I want to give them a chance to grow. Becky has planted all the seeds, right? She's tending this very new garden. And I just don't want to come in, with 1,000 rays of sunshine and heat and wilt anybody while they're trying to grow. But again, a couple people really did impress me. And I'm very curious to see if what I saw initially holds. I want to give them a month in the lab. And I want to see not only the development of the individual player, but how it goes with the other folks on the roster.
First, we had Becky the Builder.
I'm telling you, there is a lot to be excited about. I walked away. I went in with very little expectation because everything is so new and it was my first look. I walked away pleasantly surprised. This team is not going to win the Big 12, but this team will determine who can stand atop the standings in the conference. If they keep pulling on the same rope and buying into what Becky is selling, they are going to wreck some folks.
I mean, that's exciting stuff. Kevin and I have kind of given Becky Burke the moniker of Becky the Builder on this podcast.
I love that. I may borrow that for a Wildcat telecast.
Fair enough. So that's where I was going with that. Kevin made a great meme where Becky Burke has a construction vest on and a hard hat. And I was just going to ask if we could get you maybe in on our Becky the Builder side of things here.
Oh yeah. Totally. I'm 10 toes down. I love that because that's what she oozes. She really believes in her ability to, keep this thing rolling. She doesn't want to go backwards. She really appreciates and understands what Adia Barnes did to take the program out of the dredges and the bottom of the Pac-12 and get it to a national championship game and within an eyelash of winning the whole darn thing. So that's exactly where Becky wants to go.
And you alluded to that national championship game that was just missed from coming home to Arizona by just an eyelash, by Arie McDonald's eyelash. Arie McDonald, though, did have a career night for, unfortunately, against the Mercury the other night. But what did you make of that game? And did you feel any extra watching that career night happen for Arie McDonald?
Listen, you can't find a bigger Arie McDonald fan than yours truly. I am so excited for her. I can't stand it. The WNBA, fellas, is all about fit, right? We've seen Arie on several different rosters now in the league, but the offense that Stephanie White runs with the pace and the space is built for the Allen Iverson-esque style of play that Arie brings to the table. Remember, when Arizona wrecked UConn's run in 2021, remember that? Gino Auriemma told his staff, find tape of Allen Iverson. That's what Arie McDonald does on the basketball floor. She's a magician with the ball in her hand. You don't know what she's going to do with it. She can juke you out of your shoes. She can find the open post cutting to the basket. She is a weapon. And even with the game planning, Arizona still prevailed because Arie is that girl, right? So now she's doing it in the perfect setup for Indiana. When she went off for 17 in the second quarter, hello, I was screaming the paint off the wall, man. I'm so excited for that kid because she's put in the work. She's developed her three ball. She really didn't leave Arizona with a reliable three-point shot. Now she's trusted to make and take those. I love it for Arie. I really, really do.
I was going to say missing a three in a national championship setting will make you work on your three ball probably more than anything else in the world ever could, right? And it's paid off because now she's getting paid to play for the Indiana Fever, right?
Right, 100%. And now she's a fan favorite for them, and that's really hard to do. So, I'm super excited.
Yeah, absolutely. We're big Merc fans around here at PHNX Sports. So, it hurts to see the Merc lose, but I will say I think mine, and I'll speak for Kevin as well, if the Merc are going to lose, do it at the hands of Arie McDonald because it'll make it, at least we could sleep at night.
Yeah, no, 1,000%. 1,000%. You're right.
There you go. Yeah, Phoenix is in it right now. This 5-game road swing has been tough for the team. But I still like them to maintain that top 4 standing and have home court in the playoffs. But it's all about how the second half of the season treats them, and especially these matchups coming against the Dream, because Atlanta is right there, and they've met one time and Atlanta won. They've got 2 more meetings. And if Atlanta has that position, that pole position, that could affect who gets home court come postseason.
Well, I was going to ask you if you're at all worried about the little downstretch from the Mercury as of late, but it doesn't sound like you're worried at all about the Phoenix Mercury coming up into the second half of the season.
No, not with Alyssa Thomas, MVP candidate extraordinaire, who's almost averaging a triple-double this season. I like where they're at. I love the addition of DeWanna Bonner and her championship experience that she brings back to the Valley. And my only concern is the health of Satu Sabali, constantly showing up in post-game press conferences with ice bags on that ankle that was once in a boot just a few short weeks ago is concerning because her numbers have dropped precipitously. But with Kalia Copper coming on, hopefully that'll work itself out. And for me, the X factor, along with the fan base, is Sammy Whitcomb. She can go on a heater in a heartbeat.
Well, Cindy, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy Thursday here to talk to us. And, we're pumped up about Arizona women's basketball going into year 1 of Becky Burke. We're fired up about, obviously, Merc basketball right now. But we're going to hold you to what you told us earlier. When you go visit the team in August again, we're going to bring you back on and talk a little bit more about what you saw. But thank you, Cindy. You can follow Cindy at Cindy Brunson AZ on Twitter. And also just make sure you're following all of her great work doing play-by-play for the Mercury, for Arizona women's basketball, for Athletes Unlimited, for NBC Sports, you name it. The list goes on and on. Thank you so much, Cindy.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, fellas. And I will be back. I promise. I will put names and faces and stats and everything to what Wildcat Nation needs to get excited about women's basketball. But I'm telling you, first blush, super stoked to return to campus and see what Becky Burke is building.
Hell yeah. Fired up, man. Fired up for women's basketball this year. Thank you so much, Cindy.
Thanks, guys.
That was, of course, Cindy Brunson. As I already said, give Cindy a follow at Cindy Brunson AZ on Twitter. Kevin, we're going to talk about our Arizona football defensive breakdown, and also we're going to probably maybe review that interview a little bit right after the break here on the AZ Wildcats pod.
Well, Damon, that was a great interview with Cindy Brunson, but, we neglected to tell her that after the interview, she got to stop by Circle K. That's our bad, and if she's still watching, Ms. Brunson, you gotta head over to Circle K and get in that inner circle, because she is one of the most talented play-by-play people. But if you're not in the inner circle, what does it all mean? You know what I mean? And if you're not in that inner circle, you can join today for free by downloading the Circle K app and get 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups, folks. That is a ton of savings, and it does stack up, because after your first 5 fill-ups, you get 3 cents off per gallon. And then once you graduate into that AZ Wildcats podcast circle, you know what I mean, you get 5 cents off per gallon. And the deals do not end there. They have deals on drinks, beverages, snacks, hot foods, cold foods, all the different stuff at Circle K. So make sure to download that Inner Circle app today for free by downloading the Circle K app. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for more details.
Circle K, absolutely love it. And another thing that we love is buying tickets with our friends at Game Time, because, guys, whether it's a concert, a comedy show, an event, like, regular type, like maybe like a Comic-Con or something like that, or even some sports, as we are accustomed to here at PHNX Sports. Game Time is the only place to buy last-minute tickets. You hear me talk about it all the time, guys. I took advantage of Game Time and their last-minute deals when I went to San Diego. I went and saw a Padres game, Rangers, 2 teams that I'm not the most fond of, but I got cheap tickets because I waited until the last minute and I bought them with Game Time. Game Time has all kinds of great features, including their Game Time Picks app, or portion of the app, which tells you what are the best deals on certain tickets. They also can show you what your view of your seat is going to look like from that seat before you make that purchase. And, there's some big giant obstacle in your way that kind of ruins the value of those tickets. Game Time has thought about all those outside things, and of course, they are the only place to buy your tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account. Use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Time is it, Kevin?
Game time. Aroo, aroo. Gotta hit that every once in a while after a Game Time read. You just gotta let that dog out. You know what I mean?
No words.
Just barks. Let's talk about that interview we just had with Cindy Brunson, breaking down Becky Burke's hire, the summer that has been so far for the new Arizona women's basketball head coach. Damon, what was your biggest takeaway from talking to play-by-play extraordinaire Cindy Brunson?
I think that the part about just that this team is going to be death by 1,000 cuts, I thought that was interesting. Lots of different options to hit you with. But also I thought that the portion about her saying that this team won't win the Big 12, but they will decide who wins the Big 12, in part by how that they play throughout the regular season, because they're not going to be afraid of the big teams. They're not going to back down to them. And I think that there was kind of an allusion there to the fact that, Arizona women's basketball is probably going to have a couple upsets this year that kind of shock the women's basketball landscape. And so I'm excited for that. I think that would bode really well for Becky Burke and just really show, the culture that she's building and her mentality instilled in the players, right? Because if they can go out there and they can say upset like an Iowa State in a game and
how you doing, Jada?
Yeah, and kind of give it back to Jada Williams a little bit, but also, just beat a really, really good team. I think that would show me, at least, that they are truly, truly building something in Tucson for as far as what Becky Burke is doing.
Yeah, no, and I loved her answer about Becky Burke's energy and Becky Burke's intention, right? She's not overselling what she can do with this program in year one. I think that's a very important thing to come in and understand. I think, to contrast it with Brent Brennan, who I don't think did a much of an oversell with what he could do with Arizona football in his first year, but the expectations were there, and it kind of forced him to try to meet those. And I think in that, you do kind of oversell what you can do, right? What has just gone on, Damon? Has there been a Diamondbacks trade?
Yeah.
What has just gone on?
Merrill Kelly's gone.
Oh, no. To who for what?
The Rangers.
Ugh. Yeah, that's gross.
It's not the PHNX D-back show, but
gross.
Trading a guy who carried you to the World Series.
Oh, boy. It's about to be. It's about to be.
No. Rangers, no.
We better have gotten back something good. To the team that took everything from us. Now they're taking even more. I didn't even know we had much left to give, Kevin.
Our heart, apparently. I don't know. The mainstay is no longer staying in Arizona.
Let's get back to.
Well, yeah, we were talking about
that was breaking news.
Arizona sports pain? No. Becky Burke, yes. Okay. But yeah, Becky Burke's connection with the fan base and what she's been able to build. She's not overselling it in year one, right? Having realistic expectations, setting goals that you can actually smash in your first year, I think really sets you up for success as a coach of a program with the fan base specifically, right? If Becky Burke comes in and says, that's it, we're going back to the national title, like year one, year two, that's what's going to happen. No one is really internalizing that and accepting it as like, okay, she believes it, I'm going to believe it too. But if Becky Burke comes in and says, hey, we're going to work our tail off day in, day out. We're going to recruit hard every single day. We're going to get players that want to play for the University of Arizona, want to compete at the highest level, and show that they belong at the Big 12 level. I'm with that. And that's stuff that she can actually go out and accomplish. She's done 75% of that so far. And so I'm excited to see the basketball part of things because as Miss Brunson and there, Cindy Brunson alluded to, there's a lot of talent on this roster, but it's unproven talent. And so you want to see it on the court all at once. And so I'm excited for that. But so far, Becky Burke is setting goals and crushing those goals.
Yeah, it seems like almost a dream offseason for what you possibly could have expected with Adia Barnes going out the door and kind of the when you dig a little bit deeper, just the idea that Arizona women's basketball is not playing with the same budget that it was under the Adia Barnes era. They've had to kind of scale back a little bit, but even with that scale back, there's added energy in the program, which I think is huge and definitely huge for year one of a new coach. But excited about Becky Burke, excited to have Cindy Brunson on this show in the future as well. When she goes down to Tucson again, we'll definitely get her on and get more of her thoughts. But Kevin, did you have anything else on Arizona women's basketball before we move on to the football side of things?
Before we move on to the football side of things, I think we should, because we didn't do it yesterday, play DRF. Because when we spoke to Dr. Desiree at the media day down in Tucson, she had this to say about her hiring of Becky Burke.
But that's what Becky is. Like when we hired her, we wanted a relentless recruiter. We wanted someone who was going to care more about our student athletes and that they would be invited to their weddings. Someone who just would really embrace the community and engage with the community. And in Becky Burke, we've found that. And so I'm really glad the community is embracing her. She loves it here and her family loves it here in Tucson. It's a great place to be. And we're really proud of the progress she's making.
Yeah. And I think, that was just something that, that's where I got the relentless word from was when Dr. Desiree, to quote Noah, said it herself, is like Becky Burke is a relentless recruiter. And I think that when you talk about her energy, when you talk about her what are they, CrossFit workouts, like the coach that is Becky Burke is always working. The mind is always being stimulated by something, and it's usually basketball or her insane workouts in the morning. And I feel like that is the kind of commitment and energy that the program needed to be infused with after the departure of Adia Barnes. Not saying Adia Barnes wasn't committed to basketball, wasn't committed to have a high energy for the sport that she coached for so long and played for so long, right? But this is a different feel, right? From our perspective, from the die hard showing up to every single game women's basketball fan perspective as well, from Cindy Brunson's perspective as the play-by-play analyst. This is an energy that this program needed and did not have last year, or kind of dating back to since they lost the national championship game. That energy kind of got sucked out, and Becky Burke has injected it back into the program, it seems.
Yeah, certainly. And I think DRF has proven in her time at Mizzou and at UNLV that she is pretty good at building women's basketball programs. And she's done a good job vetting candidates and bringing in the right pieces. I think, I don't have the stats right in front of me right now, but UNLV and Mizzou, I think, have both drastically improved their women's basketball programs under DRF's tutelage. And so I think that this is, maybe not improvement, because it's hard to improve on getting runner-up to the national champions like Adia Barnes did, but maybe a little bit more sustained improvement, like truly building something rather than, reaching the peak so quickly and then going straight back down and to never, kind of find similar success like that ever again. So definitely going to be fun. My dad fired up for the women's basketball season this year, and as well as a lot of people here in Tucson. But yeah, Kevin, I think with that being said, I think it's time that we move on to the football side of things here, and start talking a little bit about the defensive side of the ball. We also had Danny Gonzalez speak to the Arizona football media today in Tucson at day 2 of fall camp here. So on top of the information that we have and all the clips that we have here, to show you guys, we also have some stuff that has been said by Danny Gonzalez today and we'll reference our guy Justin Spears and his great work that he's doing down there right now, including just a quick little, how about this, Kevin, just to start you off. If everything clicks for Genesis Smith, he'll probably be Big 12 Player of the Year and probably won't be here next year.
I saw that
via Danny Gonzalez.
I saw that right before the show. And I was like, fire me up. Inject that directly into the soonest vein you can find in my arm, right? I'll just say there's going to be a lot of competition for that particular award. And so I think when you put it like that, in that context of like, if everything goes perfect for this player, if this is the dream season for this player, I think that is the result, right? I think you could say that, and this is no disrespect to Genesis Smith. It's more of just like, kind of taking some of the weight out of what Gonzalez said there. Like if I don't know how many players in the Big 12, but you can say that for a ton of players in the Big 12, right? If they have the perfect season, if everything clicks for so-and-so, they could win the Heisman. They could win the Conference Player of the Year. And I feel like it does speak to Genesis Smith's skill level, that if he does put things together, he could really, truly break out. And I think that's the takeaway I have from that statement, more than whether or not he can actually compete for the Big 12 Player of the Year. That doesn't really, it would move me if he started doing it, but I'm not really putting any weight in that preseason. I just want to see people put some respect on Genesis Smith as a football player, because he can do a ton of stuff out there that he's not getting credit for in the preseason. So I love hearing his DC try to get him in that Big 12 preseason Player of the Year conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said is semi-obvious in a way. Like,
yeah.
Obviously, he's probably not going to win Big 12 Player of the Year. But I think that it's exactly what you just said at the end there. They're trying to flip the script on the way that the media has been talking about Genesis Smith or lack thereof, I guess, for a while now. And so I think that they're trying to kind of flip that by just being like, this is the best player on our defense. And I don't know what people are missing, which, is good to see, because he deserves that kind of big ups. But another, guy on the defense, while we're on the topic of Danny Gonzalez here, that gave some big ups was Riley Wilson. And he talked to me a little bit about, his reason for coming to Arizona and that connection that he built with Coach G, that is the reason that he's in Tucson.
So whenever my transfer portal, that window opened, I had a week to make my decision. So things were moving fast, going to a lot of schools. This was also my second time in the portal, so I knew what to expect. I knew what I wanted, and I knew where I needed to be. So throughout this whole process, a lot of meeting new faces, new coaches, and a lot of people telling you one thing and you're hearing another. What stuck out for me and Coach G and what led me to be here is he was the only coach that consistently hit me up and continued to build our relationship even when I wasn't here. So that stuck out to me, the way he treated my family. Talking to my family and opening the arms with them is what led to me making this decision, and I can't wait to play for a guy like him.
Yeah, does that give you a little bit of extra want to?
Absolutely. An extra 1-2 for sure. The drive behind it, knowing that he doesn't not just care about me as a person off the field, but he cares about my family as well.
Yeah, he seems like a really family-oriented guy. Is that super important to you?
Huge. I think the mechanics and the mindset of a coach and having that family standard, you got to feed that family. So the success you have as a coach also brings the successes to your family. So he's a very driven guy, and he's a God-fearing man and someone who I look up to a lot. So I think his mindset is very, very, very good for a coach.
I felt like that's one of the biggest endorsements I've seen from a player talking about a coach in some time, and it felt like, as we've discussed with a lot with this team, feels like it's more than just playing football. Feels like it's a genuine familial type environment, and Riley Wilson there talking to his defensive coordinator and just kind of his recruitment process said that it was just different. It was different with Danny Gonzalez and with Joe Salave'a and Brent Brennan and all the guys, right? Like he is that he felt like this is a place that truly valued him and valued his family, and that's the reason he's here. And you almost hear similar stuff with all the players, but I felt like that Riley Wilson there spoke to it about as best that I've heard it thus far.
That's a great point, Damon. And I said to you during that clip of like, damn, this seems like a real trend of like players that time and time again, as we talk to them in this preseason process of like, they're talking about their main position coach, or they're talking about their side of the ball coordinator, and they're just like, yeah, this guy was pretty much relentless, like, and not in like a salesman coachy kind of way of like, hey man, if you ever need to transfer, my door's open. It's just like, hey, how are you? Like, I care about you. I care about your track as a player. I care about your progression. And then now that a coach like Daigie or a coach like Salave'a or a coach like Gonzalez or even a coach like Brennan as well, players have said this about, where they remember that. And then now all these coaches are at the same stop. You are kind of seeing like a Daigie come back and convince Noah Fafita to stay. A Kean Burnett be convinced to come back, even though he literally just transferred out the season before, not even the season of football, the season of weather before, right? And I think like that is something that I've taken away from these interviews, Damon. I know you feel the same way. That is a unique trait of this coaching staff, is that they do that interpersonal relation very, very well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's their strength, right? And that's what they have to build off of. Because as much as I think that and I'm a little bit more bullish, and you are as well on this team's, I guess, future in 2025 than a lot of people are, is because they do have this environment that it feels like they've cultivated now, where people are truly in it together. And before that wasn't a thing, obviously. They're not going to beat people by, I don't think, at least, and I could be wrong. Maybe Seth Daigie is just a guru, but I don't necessarily know if they're going to beat people schematically. I feel like, it's going to have to come a lot from this upgraded morale and this sense of like team chemistry and belief in one another, that, like that part of things has to be stronger than your average football team for them to succeed. And I feel like that I truly do feel like when I talk to all the players, coaches, whatnot, that's something that is the case. We also, I spent a lot of time talking to Joe Salave'a and, his return to Arizona. I mean, it seems like he, similar to Seth Daigie, in the way that like, it feels like Seth Daigie kind of has somewhat trounced Brent Brennan in terms of what Arizona fans are talking about. I feel like it's almost similar with Joe Salave'a and Danny Gonzalez in a way, and that's why we started it with Danny Gonzalez. But I did hang out around Joe Salave'a's booth pretty much the entire time that he was available. And Joe Salave'a talked about the people that he envisions as the leaders of this defense. Good stuff here.
There's a group of guys in my short time that I've been here. Trey Smith, obviously a workhorse. He's more of a work all day, and you rarely hear from him. But I think to see him actually talk and encourage our guys this past summer, I'm encouraged. I'm excited for him, because that's not his personality. And but when he speaks, a lot of guys will listen because of the work that he's accomplished, but he's one that doesn't sit back and read his own clipping. He's all about how can I get better, how can I get better, and he's gotten a lot better in the short time that we've been here. We've been working on getting his hands, utilizing and playing off of his hands instead of butting out the people. I think those are things will continue for him. And then you look at Riley, the new addition in the linebacker room. I think he brings a pedigree that has good leadership traits. Against Genesis and those guys in the back end. I think there's enough in there. Now, how can we streamline that to that everybody is on point? But I think it starts with understanding what the ultimate goal is as a team. When all the guys understand that red line is red line, there's no other way. There's no other way. Either you're going to do it our way, this way, or you're not going to be a part of this program. And you're going to be so uncomfortable being here because you're not doing how we want it to be done. And so that goes again back to us reinforcing what we're about. Everybody's asking, well, what is our identity going to be? Well, your identity is going to be forged on that football field. It's going to be forged on that Daytona field. It ain't going to be about news clippings and tweeters and likes and retweets. I always believe that every day you got to show up with your pail and go to work. And if nothing, anything other than that, that's not good enough. And so we've been looking forward to this opportunity, and we're going to seize it every day so that we can be that much better each opportunity that we get on the grass. And I'm excited because I think the office looks different. I don't know how it was in this past year, but those guys, Coach Daggy got those guys going everywhere, and the physicality that they're preaching there, it complements what we're trying to get done. But it's all about the trenches. We got to get that line of scrimmage fight. If we don't get that damn line of scrimmage look a certain way, how we want it, it doesn't really matter then. So those are the challenges that the guys are looking forward to starting tomorrow.
Lots of things to hit on there. Off the top, number one, that's the largest man that's ever existed on the planet Earth, Joe Salave'a, and I don't mean in a bad way at all. Like, he is just
look at the size of the fella. Like, it's insane.
Like, me standing up is like the same size as him sitting down. And as Max says, he's the worst nightmare for a jar that's hard to open. 100%. Yeah, guy has Popeye arms, but the difference with that is that he doesn't have Popeye's body. His body is proportionate to his massive, gigantic arms. But anyways, Joe Salave'a is, it seems like huge move bringing him in. And I don't want to demean our former coaches from last year because I'm forgetting his name right now. I'm sorry, but he seemed like a very nice guy. But I don't think he was a great coach, and he certainly didn't speak like that at his former media day when I watched his media day in 2024. Ciamalo, yeah, it didn't sound anything like that. What we just heard from Joe Salave'a. You hear him talking about the leaders of the team: Riley Wilson, DeShawn McKnight, Trey Smith, all the DBs essentially. He said, and then talking about just that red line that they've been preaching all offseason long this year under Coach Brendan. So, I love that clip from Joe Salave'a, and I think it was extremely informative.
I love that clip as well. I mean, we spoke to the size of the fella. We can move on to what he actually said, right? And I think that the leadership piece is huge. And I think, like you said, bringing him in is the first step on that defensive side of it. And that's no disrespect to Coach Gonzalez, who is also a leader on that side of the ball. But I think bringing in the level of recruiter and there's something to the idea of, and we talked about this on the offensive side of the ball as well, being around someone that has been in the shoes that you want to one day wear, right? And I think being around a guy like Joe Salave'a, who's part of that Desert Swarm, made it to the league, and now, coach was one of the most coveted coaches on the defensive side of the ball in college. Like, that is a guy that if you are coming up on the defensive end of the ball, specifically the D-line, you want to rub shoulders with. You want to pick his brain. You want to learn what he has to say. And it gives him true authority, right, to speak the way that he does speak. He's very well-spoken, but he's very direct about what he wants the defense to do. And I think, you alluded to the idea that the family aspect of things is the team is truly coming together. And I think that's been purposeful. You and I have spoken about it throughout the entire offseason, throughout the entire hiring process of these new coaches, right? It felt like brotherhood was a real point of not contention, but a real point of focus, I should say, for Brent Brennan as he went through this hiring process. And you spoke to Joe Salave'a about the importance of brotherhood in his eyes. And this is what Big Joe had to say about big brotherhood.
Well, if you look in the behind me, the rafters, yeah, well, those are legends that came here with nothing but a mindset of work and earning everything. And I think that's where this brotherhood needs to get back to, is respecting what came before us so that we can create a monumentous presence so that we can set up the future for what this program is going to be. The brotherhood really is the buy-in. When we can get everybody to buy in the building, to buy into what the vision is from Coach Brennan all the way down, we'll have an opportunity to really make drastic progress. But that's a day thing. That goes with coaches, myself, every support staff. We have to breathe, eat, and digest everything about this program. That's what the brotherhood is. It's easy to be a brother when it's nice and cold in the AC and we're feeling good about ourselves, but we have to show up understanding that there's going to be a fight and we got to win those fights. And those daily fights are outside noise, right? Outside noise, some of those outside noises are family members. We got to fight the division from within, and we also got to fight our self-doubts. Those are some of the fights that if we can conquer those on a day-to-day basis, watch out, But I think the guys have the right mindset going into this fall camp. They've had a solid offseason, tribute to our strength coaches. But man, I'm excited myself because I'm one of the rookies on the staff, and so I'm looking forward to help elevate and transform our room so that we can contribute to where this program needs to be and should be.
You can just tell with Joe Salave'a that it means a lot, right? That it means, it means a little bit more. Just the fact that he played at Arizona, he points to those legends behind him, Chuck Cecil, Ricky Hundley, also I believe Rob Waldrop and Teddy Bruschi are on that wall, but they were a little bit further on that direction, so I didn't want to crank all the way over here and then come back to Joe Salave'a, but. He clearly has a lot of respect for the people that came before him, the players that he played with in the past, and what that means for the future of this program. Kevin, I didn't want to pop off this Joe Salave'a stuff, but I did just because that was how I outroed that clip. DeShawn McKnight talked about his position coach. Maybe
he did talk about it. I don't have that clip in here right now. But I can get that clip for you if you want to preface it a little bit more real quick.
Yeah, DeShawn McKnight, he figures to be a huge piece of this defensive line unit going into next year. Whenever you ask any of the defensive coaches or even any of the coaches really, like, who's someone that you guys brought in who's going to shock a lot of people, he said everyone says DeShawn McKnight. And you have a guy that is making a big step up in competition here. I believe coming from Alcorn State to Arizona, UT Martin to Arizona. Alcorn State was another guy. But he was, he's a player that has been very productive on his past stops. This is a huge step up in competition for him. But he did talk a little bit about Joe Salave'a and kind of playing for a position coach that has played his position at this school before, and if that means anything extra.
It's great. I tell people all the time I'm blessed to have an NFL player, a former NFL player coaching you, Arizona great coaching you, man. It's man, again, one of none. Like I feel like for me, man, not a lot of kids can say that. Not a lot of kids are blessed to be in this position. So for me to for me to really be in that position, man, I feel like it's a blessing.
He's obviously a very passionate guy. I'm sure he showed that at his previous stops as well, but clearly it means more to him to be back at Arizona. Can you feel that in the way that he coaches you guys?
No, absolutely, man. Every day he come out here, man, he's pushing us to our max. He's bringing energy, man, enthusiasm. Even when, at times where we may get mad at him, like, he's going to keep it real with us regardless. Like, he's somebody that's just cutthroat and thorough, man. So when it, when it comes down to work, like, we know it's time to work. It's no time to play, and it's time to be about the business, so yeah.
And I think that, when you spoke to Joe Salave'a's importance on this staff earlier, and I brought up the fact that he's walked in these same steps that these players want to take. And that's exactly what McKnight alluded to right there, right? This is a guy who's played this position at this school. He's a legend at this school. And like that gives him a ton of authority to be as thorough and be as cutthroat as McKnight says he can be as a coach, right? Because he's coming from a place of wanting you to be the best version of yourself as possible, right, Damon? And so I feel like, yes, that was a very good answer from McKnight there as well.
We're going to round out this discussion about the defense, hear more from Joe Salave'a, hear more from some of the players on the team. We'll do that right after the break here on the AZ Wildcats pod.
You okay over there, Damon Dog? I want to talk to our friends while Damon Dog recovers himself about our friends.
I'm going to start doing that to you every time you need to clear your throat, Kevin.
Nah, it's okay. I just want to make sure I was just checking in, making sure you're okay.
Yeah, me
if
too.
you weren't okay,
me too.
Then it would have been a problem.
No, yeah, me
then
too.
I'm a bad guy, But Shady Rays, they're never bad guys, and they have both of our backs. Like I have Damon's back if he has a little bit of phlegm. You know what I mean? Shady Rays, if you bump or break or lose your sunglasses, they'll get you your sunglasses right back because that is their lost and broken protection policy, and it is the best in all of eyewear, dare I say. You know that moment, the one where you're about to go out and you're like, which sunglasses do I need to pick? Well, Shady Rays has all the different styles for you in their repertoire to deal with. And also, if you have a favorite team that you want to support, I'm sure they have sunglasses in that team's colors that you can rock as well. So anytime I wear sunglasses, they are Shady Rays, and I wear them without fear because of that lost and broken protection policy. So we've teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com, use promo code PHNX for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
Guys, I want to talk to you about a newer company that is, becoming an absolute staple of this state. It's Pure Edibles. They were started in Flagstaff, Arizona at the Noble Orb Dispensary, and now they are made in Phoenix, Arizona, in their new home, right where we are. Guys, Pure Edibles are just better than the rest of the competitors that they have because they're not covered in sugar, right? They're real products with real flavors, and they also have real effects as well. Effects that are very clearly displayed on their tins, whether you're looking for a little bit of help sleeping, maybe a little bit of uplift and that kind of effect. They have gummies for all types of different supports, including that involve their unique cannabinoids such as CBN, CBG, CBD, and marijuana-derived THC. Over 130 dispensaries statewide. Guys, there's 171 dispensaries in this state of Arizona, according to ChatGPT. If you're not at one that sells Pure Edibles, go find yourself one that does. And go find some Pure Edibles products from one of the over 130 dispensaries across the great state of Arizona.
And we are back from our break talking about Arizona's defensive breakdown and how the Wildcats can hopefully put together a defensive unit that can stop some of the best offensive units this upcoming year in the Big 12. And as we've already spoken a lot about, a huge part of that is going to be Big Joe on the sideline conducting his defensive line unit. And Damon, you said that Joe Salave'a had a lot to say about who can be playmakers on this defensive line.
He absolutely did. He was asked about, who could potentially be playing big roles for this defense, and he basically just gave a breakdown of the entire unit.
I'm also excited for a lot of guys in the room. We got DeShawn McKnight coming over here, a fresh start, and he's an older guy and wants to go out the right way, and he's played a lot of football, good football rather, and Trey's really reshaped his body, gotten healthy, gotten stronger. Dom, Edwa, those are still young guys that accumulated some playing last year, and I'm excited to see those guys fight it out and see who's going to be there. And then you also got Bear. Jar was another cat that was injured and didn't really get an opportunity. He's finally now in a position to be on the field, and I'm excited for him, to compete and see if we can get him back to his freshman days where he's everywhere on the football field. And then, you got Malachi. Malachi got some good short area quickness and a lot of twitch and played a lot of football. And then you got Chancellor Owens. There's a lot of catalysts of guys in that room now that I'm excited, to pair those guys up and mismatch and see how they work together. But and then you get to look behind those guys. Mace Pese, he showed up, and I wasn't sure if that was the same kid that I saw in the film, but obviously to his credit, he prepared himself, and he's the one too that's gonna give us something, and I'm looking forward to his growth as a freshman. You got Caleb from right up the street in Phoenix. He's a young man too that looks the part, and and then Julian Savannah is another young man that's really reshaped his body, got up to 280, and I'm excited for him because he's the one that also played a lot of ball last year, which playing in interior is not a glorious thing, but he was one of the guys that stood out because he took on the double team at a lighter body frame, and now if you look at him now, he's gained some muscle and some mass, and I think he's going to continue to do that. As he continue to do that, I think he's going to have an opportunity to really play some good ball for us. And then Porter Patton, big young man from Austin, and I'm excited for him being here. The room really is going to be challenged. Those guys know what's coming. We're not going to come out here and prance around. We're going to come out and go to work, and we're going to push this as much as we can, and then let those guys sort it out through their play. And it's about teaching and putting those guys in a position so that they can let it go. And so I'm excited for the opportunity to work for all those guys. And then when a couple guys get in the building that are not here yet, we'll figure that one out. But we're truly excited to build on what they did in the spring ball, into the summer, into the fall camp, and looking forward to the opportunity to rewrite the narrative about this defensive unit, because I've heard the sayings, I've heard all the news clippings, and when I signed the dotted line here, I took all those things in, and I got a chip on my shoulder to get this thing cranking. So I'm excited for that.
I love how a question about the defensive line unit turned into Joe Salave'a saying, I've remembered every bad word that's been said about this program, and I'm using it as fuel to make us better. Like, it feels like the entire team has kind of just been locked in a room with like that being like all of like the different clippings as he refers to them as just on loop, just getting in your head. And so that all these guys, just all they can think of is all the disrespectful things that have been said about them. But I do want to touch on some of the names that he mentioned there. I think that it tells you a lot that he goes to DeShawn McKnight at first. As I said earlier, like I just think DeShawn McKnight is going to play such a massive role on this team. And it feels like everybody is kind of, I don't want to say this word, but it almost feels like that way, crowned him as somewhat of the jewel of that defensive line group. You, of course, have Trey Smith, who's, one of the staples of this team, was out at Big 12 Media Day for a reason, is, a true leader on this team as well, as Joe Salave'a mentioned. But the one that stuck out to me in the way that he spoke about them is Jonah Savaiinaea. Julian Savaiinaea, Big Jonah's little brother, who was not a very big-time recruit, and, was a little bit of a smaller defensive line prospect. But Kevin, I don't know if you got a chance to see him yesterday.
I did.
Bro.
Yeah, I know. I saw him at Media Day too, and he had that basketball jersey on, and it was just all arms.
Dude, he looks massive. He looks absolutely massive. Yeah, he was wearing a Samoa basketball jersey or something yesterday. It was pretty cool. And the guy is just in unbelievable shape. He got a little bit of that experience last year, albeit on a bad defense that needed bodies. But I think that could be huge for someone who's expected to take a massive leap in their next season. And I really do think that Julian Savaiinaea, like if what they're preaching there is the truth, and that body change has really, impacted who he's going to be as a football player, I feel that he could play a massive role for this team next season. And we know that he has the genes for it, right? Like, Jonah Savaiinaea is, maybe the most physically ready offensive lineman this program has produced since I can remember. And he stepped on campus essentially and was already, that massive starter quality size. That's why he started as a true freshman. His brother took a little bit longer to process that, but I think you're going to see the full effects of that body transformation here in the 2025 season.
He looked lean too. Like, I know you're saying that he's in good shape, but he looked huge, and he looked like he had put on muscle, but it looked like it was not at the expense of putting on fat in addition to it. It was a lean Julian Savaiinaea, and one that, they're talking about his quick twitch ability. And in combination, when you can combine muscle mass and maintain your quick twitch ability, that is when you become dangerous as a defensive lineman. I feel like, especially at this college level where you are working so hard to maintain your mass and put on more mass. I think a player like Julian Salave'a, who has that, I'll say well of information to lean on, whether it be a Joe Salave'a, whether it be his brother Jonah, right? You have that well of information as to how to keep your body in shape for the long season ahead and how to maintain performance throughout it all. I think that was a very keen observation by you, Damon. And I love that Joe Salave'a took that answer about his D-line unit, and he did kind of turn it into just, here's how each player in my room can make an impact this upcoming season. It was not like, yeah, McKnight's going to be great. Salave'a is going to be great. We know Trey Smith is going to be good. It was, I have difference makers across the board in this room. And I feel like we're hearing that from all the coaches on this upcoming year's Arizona football team, whether it be the wide receiver room, whether it be the DB room. The depth has certainly been increased across the board. And I hope that it turns into success for the Arizona football program in 2025.
Yeah, and it felt like a lot of, players are definitely more bought in this year than they were last year. Kevin, why don't we go ahead and take this thing into overtime on the AZ Wildcats pod? We'll get into and wrap up this conversation regarding our defensive preview. But, as I was saying, there is definitely more of a buy-in from this year to last year. I asked Tate Brown, who figures to be, starting linebacker. Justin Spears shouted him out as the guy he thinks will be the leading tackler of the team. And I talked to him about the buy-in of, this team versus, what we unfortunately had to witness last season because it was bad, right? And, you could tell that there were players with feet out the door and players that wanted to be here. Now it seems like everybody that is here wants to be here truly. So here's what our guy Tate Brown had to say about it.
I feel like we're focusing more on like the little details, and we're really honing in on red line. That's like been our mantra all throughout offseason. We've just been like engraving that in people, the new people who came in and like the people who stayed. We really just been like honing in on that, on red line, everything.
When we were at Media Day talking to Coach Brennan, some of the other players that came out, there was a lot of talk of, we got the guys out of the room that didn't really want to be here, and now everybody here is in lockstep, everybody's connected. Do you feel that from, being one of the leaders of this team?
Yeah, it definitely feels like the morale of the locker room is definitely higher than it was last year, which is great to be around. Definitely don't want the morale to be low in the locker room and just negative. So it's definitely more positive this year.
And he didn't go quite the lengths that it felt like almost everybody was speaking of at Big 12 Media Day. But as we talked about, Kevin, it almost seemed like that was like a predetermined thing. Like, hey, we're going to go in here and we're going to tell people it's going to be different because this team wants to be here and play together. But yeah, I thought that, Tate Brown was, he just talked about, kind of, he mentioned the morale was not high last year. And that sucks after retaining all those players. Like, it felt like it from our perspective, like the morale was high, but I guess it just, the locker room just had kind of a weird dynamic.
Yeah, I'm sure that the morale was high in certain pockets of the locker room because you retain those elite players, but I think there was likely a lot of uncertainty in certain pockets of the locker room, right? Because you do have a new coach coming in, unproven at that level of football, right? And I think if you are a player, we don't want to like name a bunch of names and assume and speculate that this was the case, but if you're a player that, let's say, had NFL aspirations coming into last season, and you're thinking, well, should I really be here at Arizona? We were in the Alamo Bowl last year. Maybe I need to be on another bowl team this year. I don't know if this team really has it. If any of those thoughts are circulating in the locker room at all, it's a virus, right? Because it catches on. One guy talks to his friend on the team. Now the other friend is thinking about transferring. And now you have a situation going on where there are some guys in some rooms in, some guys in some rooms out. And then this year, it like you said, it feels like and I don't think it's a bad thing either. And I'm not saying you're saying this, but I don't think it's a bad thing to say that it's a predetermined talking point, right? To come in and be like, hey, we got the guys that actually want to be here this year. Because the more you hear it, the more I think that becomes true, right? It feels like when Brent Brennan uses his opening remarks for his Tucson Media Day to say that, hey, right now what we're doing today is focusing on the guys that are here today, focusing on the guys that want to be here today. And I think that when you get to that point of it, I think you're right, Damon. I think it has become a predetermined talking point in the sense that you want to make sure that everyone knows that this team this year is on the same page. And if you thought they were last year, unfortunately, you are incorrect. And they were not on the same page that you, I, Damon, thought that they were heading into last season. And it feels like whether you want to buy into the red line mentality as a way of living in your life or not, it feels like this team has bought into that red line mentality, and hopefully it results in W's as yet to be seen. But in the offseason, it certainly has resulted in connection between that locker room.
We talked to Tay Brown there. I think this is a good spot to potentially keep it on the linebackers here for a second. You spoke to the Arizona linebackers coach, Kevin.
I did speak to Josh Bringuel as well, and I think that I was, not that I had low expectations coming into speaking with Coach, but I was blown away by how open he was, how well-spoken he was about his group. And when I asked him about, because Arizona fans haven't seen a linebacker group under his tutelage just yet, what style he wants them to play in, this is what he had to say about how the linebackers this year for Arizona are supposed to play.
I hope they look like that. Right? If you strive for perfection, you will achieve excellence. So our goal is to be perfect every play, but you strive for perfection, you'll achieve excellence. But I want us to play with, we talk about dominant contact a lot. And that's both the mentality, right, which you got to have first, the mentality, but then also developing and training through individual work, the body position to generate the most force on contact. So I want them to play that way with dominant contact, but I want them to, when you put on the tape, to say, that group plays different. They're playing at a higher speed than people. They're violent when they get to the ball, and they're just more aggressive than everybody. So when you instill that in the classroom, I think when guys understand the standard, when they understand what the heck you're doing defensively, then you can play fast and free on the field. When you play fast and free and you believe in yourself, you believe in the team, you believe in the scheme, you believe in everything we're doing, then it's just cut it loose and play. But you have to train that every day. That's something that naturally doesn't necessarily just happen. You don't just wake up and most people don't wake up and go, I'm going to violently run into somebody in collisions. Most people don't. But training that and developing that and having that beat set the standard every day. You don't just wake up on game day and do that. You do that on Monday, you do that on Tuesday, you do that on Wednesday, you do that on Thursday, throughout the entire year. And they've been doing a phenomenal job of that. They attack, like I've been saying, they've attacked spring ball. They attack this summer, and with everything, it's having that mindset through everything we do. No matter what it is, be the best at what you're doing at that particular moment. And whatever happens, whatever the result is, good. What's next? Move on, attack the next one with the same mentality.
Kyle Cooper in the chat says, nice shirt, Kevin. I saw he was on the Sun Devils pod earlier, made his return to the ship, if you will. Did Captain Redbeard? I don't know.
Shocked me to my core.
Yeah, I don't know.
If you guys aren't familiar with what Kyle's got going on, he is currently on a trip across the country to different national parks, and him and his friend John and his other buddy, who I forget his name, I'm sorry, are cooking free food for people.
Yeah.
Really cool stuff. Follow along with what Kyle's doing. Kyle, please drop the different ats and stuff that people will need to follow if they're interested in following along here in the chat, because it is sweet stuff, and we love supporting our friend Kyle.
We do love supporting Captain Redbeard, even though he has poor taste in colleges. And I think that the chef's at is at Chef John AK for Alaska there on Instagram. So make sure to check him out. Make sure that Kyle is drinking water and taking care of himself on the road. But getting back into what Coach had to say there, I think that what stood out to me most there about what he said about the style of play of the linebackers coming in 2025 is not that, they're going to play hard. They're going to practice hard every day. We're going to like that is coach speak. But what I think I took away most from it was the violence piece of this, because now this is, I think, the fourth coach we have spoken to over the last couple of weeks, you and I, Damon, that has mentioned choosing violence as a way that they want to play football. On both sides of the ball, whether it's offense or defense. It feels like this Arizona football team wants to play harder than they've been playing in recent years. They want to choose violence. They want to be a tough team to play, whether it be with their pacing, whether it be with their strength and conditioning and physicality, or whether it be with their schemes. They want to make it harder for teams to come into Tucson and play football games, and I'm all with that. And I think that if you have coaches that are, shout out to the Suns, aligned on their idea of fast, physical football, I think you are going to see a more successful Arizona Wildcats football team going into 2025, Damon. Now, I believe, part of that is going to be players that came into this program from maybe a lower level of football, so to speak, that are trying to make a step up in competition here, Damon. Who did you speak to about that, and what did they have to say on that topic?
Yeah, I know a couple linebackers that Arizona has brought in here, one being Max Harris from Texas State, coming along with Ishmael Mahdi, who I also talked to him about. Should have had that clip yesterday ready for us for our offensive preview because he just talked about kind of the ability that he brings to the table. But Max Harris also talked to me about, kind of that step up in competition moving into the Big 12. And if you remember properly, Texas State played ASU, who ended up being the Big 12 champions last year. So he got a firsthand look at what it's like to play one of the top teams in the Big 12.
Yeah, so I would say that really just showed me that, this is where I belong. I wanted to move up a level, play at the Power 4 level. And so playing against, the Big 12 champions and stuff like that, it just made me realize that, at the end of the day, it's all football, and no matter what level it is, it's going to be great competition, and, I belong here.
I can't name a more positive guy than Max Harris. I don't know if he's, all positivity all the time, if that's like his personality type. But when we spoke to him, Damon, and I'll let you get to the football side of things in a second, but I wanted to bring this up. When I spoke to him, I was in a good mood prior, but I walked away absolutely beaming. It's one of those things where you intercept somebody with great energy and you're just like, that was a special person that I just interacted with. And Max Harris, whether it was 5 people at his table, whether it was 0 people at his table, is just sitting there like this with the biggest smile on his face.
It's very true.
He's just like, I'm happy to be here in this training facility, sitting at this table,
that dude
waiting for someone to ask me
energy.
a question. It was awesome. And you did speak to him about the step up. And we did play a little bit of Ishmael Mahdi yesterday, and he echoed something similar as to what Max Harris said there, is like when you play a team that ended up at the top of their conference the year prior, and then you step into that conference, you know and you feel like you can play at that level. You just went head-to-head, tete-a-tete with that team. And, I mean, Texas State gave ASU a run for their money in that game in some ways, and I think that if you're Max Harris and you're Ishmael Mahdi, you feel like you can play at the Big 12 level, and that is, I think, exactly what that clip illustrates. But they were not the only two stepping up into the Big 12 level for the first time. Riley Wilson also spoke with Damon about stepping up into Big 12 competition, and this is what RW had to say about stepping up into the Big 12.
I think it's everything that I've been doing. I don't think there'll be a change really at all or an adjustment for me, just because no matter where I go, the standard's a standard, and I rise to that standard. So I'm excited for this opportunity for me to compete against great athletes. The FCS level has got a lot of great athletes. Whenever you start getting to that playoff football, you're playing Power 4 competition. North Dakota, South Dakota State, those teams are very good, and they have a lot of talent that makes it to the next level. So I think for me, it's just rising to the standard of competition and just showcasing what I can do.
I think, you see it there from Max Harris. You see it from Riley Wilson. I feel like the new additions to this team, even DeShawn McKnight, right? They have a ton of energy. It's infectious, and they feel like even, they don't even seem worried about the step up, right? I asked all 3 of them, and all 3 of them were just like, yeah, fired up about it. Can't wait. Riley Wilson talked about, as he said right there, like when you play the North Dakota States of the world, the South Dakota States of the world, those are caliber teams that are like Power 5, Power 4 caliber teams. We saw it when North Dakota State came and played Arizona a couple seasons ago in Tucson, right? Like that's a great football program. And so, I'm excited for those guys. I will be interested to see if the step up does show a little bit of, like difficulties for them, but at the same time, I feel that they are uniquely suited for trying to make this step up. That being said, Arizona is banking a lot on guys that played at the FCS level and kind of instilling a ton of confidence in those players, and that's probably going to be make or break for this defense in particular, as well as the offense. I mean, you have guys like Ishmael Mahdi who are going to play huge roles, but which isn't FCS anymore. They are FBS, Texas State. But, like Riley Wilson, FCS, DeShawn McKnight, FCS, those type of players, like you need them to contribute immediately and play huge roles. And this team isn't going to be very good if those guys look like the Big 12 is too much for them. But we're going to come find that out when the season starts.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. When you and I broke down our season predictions and what would have to go right or what would have to go wrong for Arizona to either make or miss a bowl game. When we were talking about what could go wrong, we spoke about these players stepping up into a higher level of competition. And this is a huge gamble that the coaching staff is they've had to take, because you're not in a position to go get some of the best FBS players in the portal, So you have to, and this is, not demeaning them, but for lack of a better phrase, go get the best of the rest, right? And if you can go get the best of the rest and coach them up to a place where they can play at that level, or maybe they're ready for that level and you just got to help facilitate them showcasing that at the Big 12 level, it is a big gamble, right? You're taking a chance on guys like Riley Wilson, on DeShawn McKnight. They could pan out. They could also fizzle out as well. And I think, there's a lot of expectation. We just talked to Cindy Brunson about the women's basketball side of things and how she was not wanting to put too much pressure on some of the incoming players that are coming up a level to come play at Arizona, because she knows how hard that is to do that, right? She doesn't want to put too much pressure on them, add to what they already have going on. When you have a guy like, and I think this speaks to the confidence that the coaching staff has in these FCS transfers that they've picked up. But when you have Danny Gonzalez going up to the podium today and saying, he fixes his mouth and said that Riley Wilson's going to be a household name by the end of this upcoming football season. Mm-hmm. That's not nothing. That's not something you just say about a player. That is a lot of expectation to put out there into the fan base. And so will Riley Wilson be able to come through for this coaching staff? I think that there's a chance that he could, but it is on its face a huge gamble, and I think you're right on that.
I have confidence in this defense because I think defensive line is so important, and Arizona did not have a good defensive line last year, but I think Joe Salave'a is a floor raiser for a defense. I really do. I think that he's a good enough coach where, him alone being in the building and the guys that he's going to bring in and the connections that he has from a recruiting standpoint are going to bring in good enough football players where the floor of this defense is going to raise because of it. I worry a little bit about the cornerback position just because you have so many moving parts in and out, and it doesn't feel like that there's like a ton of, locked in type of starters. Like I think Javion Cole is starting, but outside of that, I'm interested to see what, who else is going to get the bulk of the playing time. Aiden Garnes, maybe Marquise Groves Killebrew. Like, it'll be interesting to see, but I think that this defense will benefit from the fact that they have better position coaches, in my opinion, this season than they did last season. The fact that they have actual buy-in from their players fully across the board instead of guys who seemingly had one foot out the door and were ready to transfer the second the season ended. And the fact that they, probably will not sustain the amount of injuries that they did last season, Kevin. And those three things combined for me make this defense, will they be the best defense in the Big 12? I don't think so. Not even close. But will they be bottom 5 in the Big 12 again? I think that's where, things are hopefully going to change for this team in a big way. And if they could just be more middle of the pack and then that offense can be slightly above average, I think that's the path to a bowl game, right? Like, give me an average defense, give me a slightly above average defense with Noah Fafita and Seth Dagey and all those pieces that you have there. I think you need them to be a little bit better than what you would deem average necessarily. But that's where moves are going to be made for this team. And I can't wait for it, man.
I can't wait for it too, Damon. We've done a great job, I think, breaking down the defense today. We've talked.
If you do say so yourself.
If I do say so myself, this is our podcast, and I wouldn't do it if I didn't think it was good. You know what I mean? So I think we did a good job breaking down the defense today. You heard from Joe Salave'a. You heard from some of the impact defensive players coming into 2025, and you got the great Damon Dogs takeaways as well. I feel like, in addition to the Cindy Brunson interview, we've done a great job today on this show, Damon. And before we do move on to, TGIF kind of vibes, I do want to cue Damon up to talk a little bit about what's going on up north here in Tempe, because while you and I are talking about how great the vibes are in Tucson and how we feel like we're moving on up and we are, leveling up in this life and we're putting 2024 behind us and we're not looking in the rear view, Coach Dillingham was throwing a fit today, and apparently rightfully so, because ASU did not have good practices today. Max was in our chat saying, Dilly not happy with the first two practices. Quote, don't be mad going 5-7, 6-6, or 3-9. And I don't think you've seen that clip. I have seen that clip.
I'm looking at it right now. I haven't heard it.
He was talking about how there were multiple drop passes. He pretty much described, to my understanding, like a normal, lazy first or second practice back. When you got to kind of break the guys back into what they've been doing, you got to get them back into working hard. But coming off the year they just had, you shouldn't really have to do all that. And after all the hype that you are having, it is kind of crazy to hear, don't be mad going 5-7, 6-6, or 3-9. even. Damon, is there a reaction you have to this?
He went on to say, somebody has to go those records. We didn't practice bad. We didn't practice with passion. It was a good practice for a bad team.
Ugh.
Trouble in paradise.
And he knows bad teams.
Yeah, he's coached them.
Yeah, exactly.
3-9.
He's not just saying that. He's like, yo, guys, we've been here before. I don't want to go back.
I don't know how much to really truly take from that. I think Kenny Dillingham is trying to fire up his team and get them on the right track. But it is funny to look at and laugh at. Arizona can't really go about their business in the same way, because I think if Brent Brennan was sitting up there saying stuff like that, people would be like, why do you still have a job here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If people were like, so the team's practicing bad, you brought in no players that are helping, and you had a disastrous season last year, that would be doomsday in Tucson. But the fact that ASU has such high expectations, I think that this is just going to be seen as like a quick, like he's just trying to motivate his guys. But I hope I'm wrong. I hope that they truly do look like a 3-win football team and that they're horrific.
Could you imagine? Could you genuinely imagine?
No,
Arizona comes out and is decent to good.
Somebody,
and then ASU does go that 3-9, and you're just like, this is kind of great.
I mean, I would love it. Obviously, everybody knows that, and I would have a field day with it. But part of me worries about my long-term health if I was able to get tweets off about a 3-9 ASU team all season long. Like, if someone sees me out in public, what are they going to do? Are people going to start looking up information about where I live? Like, that's the kind of vibe that I'm afraid of if ASU has that kind of season. Because I mean, frankly, everyone knows that ASU fans just do not like me.
And I don't have any inclination as to why they wouldn't dislike you.
Because apparently none of them understand jokes, sarcasm, the fact that Twitter is supposed to be a place where people are trying to be funny.
Yeah.
I would argue, and as much as you want to say you have no reason as to why, that is genuinely why. No one has the ability to, like cognitively break down the fact that this is satire and respond with something funny of their own.
Yeah,
there's very, very few that can truly, truly understand and comprehend that.
Media literacy is certainly dying in this country, and you do see it every day on Twitter. If you just post like a meme, like something that's clearly a meme in a meme format, people will take it seriously. They will be like, "You actually believe this?"
It's been my life for like a month, dude. Every tweet I have, people are taking in the most literal sense possible, and it's blowing my mind.
Yeah. Well,
this is like the first time in my life where I've just been like legitimately like social media is just like being like, oh my God, man.
Yeah.
Do you guys like whatever happened to getting jokes off on Twitter? Isn't that the whole damn point?
I think X happened to Twitter.
Fair.
You know what I mean? Anyway, I think that's for a different podcast that may be named later. Damon, do you have anything else before we get on out of here today?
Nope, that's going to do it for us today on the AZ Wildcats pod. We're going to talk more about Arizona football as they head into fall camp. I'm with Kobe as well. I want to say before we get out of here, Zach Allen's still on my baseball team. It's horrific. It's horrific.
The milkman.
It's never been worse. So unfortunately, I have to go talk about that on PHNX D-backs here at the top of the hour. Make sure you guys tune in for that. Follow us at PHNX_Wildcats. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Like this video as well. You can follow Kevin at KevoPosts. You can follow me at Damon Dog. And of course, thank you so much to Cindy Brunson for giving us her time at the top of the show, breaking down her time with Arizona women's basketball that she spent with Becky Burke in Tucson yesterday. So check that out if you joined late. But appreciate everybody for being here, and we will catch you on a Friday edition at 2 p.m. of the AZ Wildcats pod. Until then, peace out. Bear down.
And go Cats. Stop making D-backs news during our damn show.
We all silly like the mayor.